Early pace setters, results begin to stream in after Madagascar's presidential election. Artillery exchange, fragile peace in eastern DR Congo shattered by fresh fighting. And glory hunting for a good cause. We tell you about an exciting charitable event in Zimbabwe. You're watching Africa Live. Hello and thank you for joining us. I'm Penina Karibe with plenty coming up, including these stories. Pulling together, we tell you about AU's push for a peaceful transition in the Central African Republic. And Triumph Over Violence, our special series on Nigeria, looks at the resilience of Damaturu residents. And we start this broadcast in Madagascar, where results have started to trickle in after a presidential election. Nearly a day after voting ended, the Electoral Commission released provisional results from 117 out of more than 20,000 polling stations. This perhaps indicates the huge logistical task facing one of the world's largest islands as it crafts its political transition. The numbers showed early leads for two of the most fancied candidates, Jean-Louis Robinson, a close political ally of the president, ousted in 2009, Marc Ravalomanana, and Harry Rajaonarimampanina, a former finance minister under Rajoelina. However, analysts say it is still too early to draw any concrete trends from the partial results. The Malagasy people went to the polls on Friday to choose between 33 presidential hopefuls. As Malagasy awaits the results of Friday's presidential election, many are sighing with relief because voting went on smoothly, devoid of major violent incidents. However, the damage occasioned by 4 years of political turmoil cannot be repaired in a rush. And as CCTV Sinland reports from the capital, Antananarivo, this vote is all about the fate of the country's future generation.
This is one of the nutrition centers where the United Nations Children Fund, UNICEF, and other local agencies monitor the growth and development of children. They focus on monitoring the weight of children, providing mothers with consultancy and lessons on balanced diet. The political crisis has had some severe impact on children on the island.
More than 50% of the children aged less than 5 years are affected by chronic malnutrition, and this total to more than 2 million children.
This state of affairs has contributed largely to the high child mortality over the past 4 years.
Still, in Madagascar, every day 120 children die of preventable disease, things that could easily be attacked with preventions like vaccination.
Outside the capital city, the situation is not encouraging at all. Many children have to leave school to help with family work. For them, going back to school seems a dream too distant to realize.
Children hold the future of Madagascar. However, during the past 4 years, an increasing number of school-age children have dropped out of school. Here, only 3 out of every 10 children can finish primary education, a trend that's going to have very severe repercussions in the near future.
First of all, it's very difficult if they miss 1 year to bring them back to school the next year, because when they drop out of school, usually they know they don't go back to school. So that's the first thing. And second thing is, if you have so many children who have not been educated, you have a whole generation which, when they grow, will not be educated, so cannot contribute in a very full way to the building of the economy of the country.
But she also believes this election offers an opportunity for the government to right the wrongs and start anew.
This election is an enormous opportunity. It is a rebirth. It's an opportunity for this country to start from scratch, because today it is at scratch. It is really hit bottom. And it is an opportunity for the people to start standing up again.
To ensure a bright future for the next generation, the new government faces many challenges: job creation, attracting investment, providing health care. All these need to be addressed quickly before it's too late. Sunlan, CCTV, Antananarivo, Madagascar.
Well, let's get more now from Clementine Logan. She is live for us from Madagascar's capital, Antananarivo. Clem, what's the latest there? Do we have clear front runners yet?
Well, Penina, it's steady but slow progress here at the Independent National Election Commission, where teams are on constant rotation as they count and verify those votes that are coming in electronically. Now, there are no ways to tell, there are no exit polls to tell us how to predict what exactly will happen, but from the votes that have come in so far, it does look like Dr. Jean-Louis Robinson is faring quite well, with around 27%. Now, he's the official candidate of ousted President Marc Ravalomanana, and he's also the former Minister of Sports and Health. He commands quite a strong base. Just this afternoon, he addressed large crowds of his supporters who were chanting "President." Now, on the other side, things are a little bit less clear about who among those several candidates that appeared to have the backing of transitional President Andry Rajoelina might make it through to that second round, but tipped as a favourite among them is Eri Rajaonarimampianina, the former finance minister, who's coming in second with around 15%, and just behind him, former Prime Minister Camille Vital with about 9%. Now, it could be more than a week before we start to get a clear picture of who's going to make it through to that second round in December, so we're waiting to hear a little bit more about that, but what we do know is that the Senate here has only gotten through about 366 of the 20,001 polling stations across the country. Penina.
Now, Clem, as we saw, there are a lot of challenges ahead for Madagascar's new leader. What are the frontrunners promising to do if they reach office?
Well, their priorities are all quite similar, as you heard there in that report, to create much needed jobs, get the economy back on track, but also improve access to healthcare and education. As you heard, a lot of children out of school since the crisis began in around in 2009, an estimate of around 500,000. It's important to remember that a lot hinges on this election being deemed credible and transparent if Madagascar is to regain that international financial support that it needs to recover from this protracted crisis. Some people I spoke to are concerned that in that second round, the way things are going, although it's very early stages, that in that second round we'll essentially see two camps facing off, one backed by the Ravalomanana's and on the other, Rajoelina. No one here wants to see a repeat of that power struggle that plunged the country into chaos in 2009. So there have been a lot of appeals by international observers for a pacific electoral process. If anyone wants to contest those results, that they're done through legal channels so that Madagascar can begin to regain that investor and donor confidence that it so badly needs to recover. Penina.
All right, Clementine Logan live there for us from Antananarivo. Now to the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the United Nations mission says it is assessing the situation after heavy fighting broke out. M23 rebels and government troops engaged each other in eastern DRC after nearly 2 months of uneasy calm. The clash comes days after peace talks broke down in the Ugandan capital Kampala. Here's CCTV's Maria Galang with more.
For the first time in nearly 2 months, the sound of gunfire is heard near the eastern city of Goma. M23 rebels clashed with DR Congo government troops on Friday, both sides claiming the other began the assault. This renewed fighting comes just days after peace talks stalled between the two camps. Neighbouring Rwanda claims yet again that Congolese army shells had landed on its territory. South African and Tanzanian troops, part of a new UN intervention brigade with a tough mandate to crush armed groups, were present near the front line but did not join the combat. The United Nations mission in Congo said it was reviewing the situation on the ground before deciding whether to help the Congolese army in its operations against the rebels. After the breakdown of the Kampala talks this week, the Congolese government said it had rejected the demands of the rebel movement for an amnesty for its leaders and its reintegration into the army. M23 says it has no desire to rejoin the Congolese forces, but insisted on amnesty for its leadership. In response, Congolese President Joseph Kabila threatened military force. It is the second time in 3 months that peace talks have faltered and combat has broken out, with the deadline to a resolution having come and passed. Peace in the eastern DRC remains uncertain. Maria Galang, CCTV.
You're watching Africa Live. Let's take a break. Straight ahead. Triumph over violence, a special series to Nigeria looks at the resilience of Damaturu residents.
The abduction of Libya's Prime Minister Ali Zaidan laid bare a deadly struggle within that country's fragile government. This week, Talk Africa probes Libya's emerging militia problem and explains why Africa cannot afford to look the other way.
Leaders of the 15-nation West African bloc, ECOWAS, have concluded talks in the Senegalese capital, Dakar. An appeal was made to the international community for urgent steps to secure peace in Mali. Major strides were also taken towards the creation of a single regional currency. CCTV's Desiree Cannon has more details.
Besides regional integration and the economic partnerships agreement with the European Union, the summit laid particular emphasis on topical issues, particularly the political situations in Mali, Guinea-Bissau and Guinea.
Les chefs d'État et de gouvernement.
The heads of state and governments strongly condemn atrocities continuously committed by terrorists in northern Mali and urge allied forces to take additional measures to strengthen security in northern Mali. To this end, the conference urges the United Nations, the international community and troops contributing countries to take urgent measures to support MINUSMA.
Such attacks have become commonplace in Mali, but these are the final Islamist convulsions, and we are not particularly worried. We deplore the loss of human life.
The summit has also urged the interim authorities in Guinea-Bissau and other political leaders to speed up the preparations for the general elections due to take place by the end of 2013.
ECOWAS leaders have reaffirmed their commitment to working for free, fair and credible elections in the member states in a view to entrenching democracy and good governance.
President Blaise Compaoré from Burkina Faso and Goodluck Jonathan from Nigeria, mediators in Mali crisis including President Alpha Condé from Guinea-Conakry, and many ECOWAS officials were congratulated for their actions. The summit also welcomes the organization of legislative elections in Guinea and Togo. Desiree Cannon, CCTV, Dakar, Senegal.
The CCTV team is on a groundbreaking assignment in Nigeria, the road into the Boko Haram badlands. In this latest report, the team is in Damaturu in the far northeast. Residents there are determined to triumph over the violence, but the city has paid a terrible price. Robert Nagila filed this exclusive story.
A grim reminder of a painful chapter in Nigeria's recent history. It's almost 2 years ago now, but to those who were there, the terror is still fresh.
I always tag it as a dark moment of our lives here in Damaturu.
On the evening of November 4th, 2011, more than 200 gunmen belonging to Islamist group Boko Haram stormed the city, blocked all 4 exits and began the killing. Churches were a favorite target. Around 10 were burned, St. Mary's among them.
We all ran away to a kind of hide somewhere, and they came early morning to see the church burning. I looked straight into the church, and I just looked at the tabernacle. I shed tears. It took everybody by surprise because there was no room of what really happened. Gunshots and the bomb blast at that time, many of us have never experienced that.
By the time the military retook control, about 150 people were dead. It was after the attack on St. Mary's Parish and other churches across the country that the Nigerian government began providing security for all places of worship.
It really shook people, it put fear in the people, and people asked a lot of questions as to what is happening in our country, Nigeria.
The story of Damaturu since then has been one of a city of 45,000 that's under siege, of closed business, of roadblocks, and of more attacks, particularly on the young. Talk to the people here, and many will tell you they believe the tide is turning. But of all the people we spoke to, only Father James John dared to go on camera. Robert Nagila, CCTV, Damaturu, Nigeria.
In other news across the continent, Nigeria's military said on Friday it had killed 95 suspected Boko Haram fighters in raids in the country's northeast. Gunmen from the Islamist group had been battling security forces in a neighboring area. The army, which is striving to crush a 4-year Islamist uprising in Nigeria, said it deployed bombs and ground troops to destroy insurgent camps in Borno on Thursday. Spokesman General Ibrahim Atahiru said in a statement published late Friday that 70 suspected Islamists were killed in Borno State and others fled towards Damaturu, where 25 more were killed by the army. And for the north, Tunisia's ruling moderate Islamist party Ennahda and the opposition began talks on Friday to form a caretaker government after months of anti-government protests. The transitional cabinet will be tasked with preparing for elections and an agreement to end months of unrest in the country. The North African nation has been in turmoil since July when the assassination of an opposition leader ignited protests that threatened to derail a democratic transition. And finally, violence has been breaking out all over the Central African Republic since Muslim Seleka rebels ousted President Francois Bozize in March. Lawlessness has led to a descent into chaos across the country, where many have been displaced and are in dire need of humanitarian assistance. The coup was the latest to trigger social strife in the country that remains one of the world's poorest, despite abundant gold and uranium deposits. United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon has called on the organization's Security Council to dispatch a peacekeeping force to help stabilize the country. As the security situation continues to deteriorate in the Central African Republic, questions have been raised as to why the African Union has not yet sent troops to pacify the country. CCTV's Grum Chala caught up with the director of AU's Peace and Security Commission, Al Gassam Wane, to find out what solutions are in the pipeline to stabilize the wider region.
To help stabilize the situation in the Central African Republic, the African Union proposed troops to be deployed in that country. But so far, nothing is happening. So what went wrong, really?
Well, first, I don't think we can limit AU's efforts to just the deployment of a peacekeeping operation. The African Union has been involved in efforts to provide, to ensure stability, peace and security in CAR for many, many years. And you would probably recall that when the rebel movement Seleka was about to enter Bangui, we did warn against the dangers that were inherent to the forceful takeover of Bangui, because we fear that it will lead to a total breakdown of law and order with far-reaching consequences for the population. Unfortunately, that happened. Since then, AU, working closely with the Economic Community of Central African States, has made sustained efforts to first facilitate a peaceful and inclusive transition to constitutional order through the holding of elections. Second, to assist CAR in restoring security through the deployment of a peace support operation.
What is the solution that you see in a clear sight that is going to bring all the parties to a negotiating table or perhaps bring peace to that country?
There is a two two-pronged approach in dealing with the current challenges. One is political. How do we facilitate a peaceful, inclusive transition to constitutional order? A transitional government has been put in place, other transitional institutions have been put in place. Of course, they need to deliver on the basis of the roadmap that was agreed upon by the Central African actors. And by the way, on the 8th of November, we'll be convening a meeting of the International Contact Group on CAR, which is co-chaired by the AU and the Republic of Congo, to precisely look at the evolution of the political process in CAR. The second aspect of our efforts is security. How do we assist the CAR authorities restore security and protect the civilian population? The Peace and Security Council has authorized the deployment of a mission. We have been working with ECAS on the transition process, and as I indicated, the transition process will take place on the 19th of December. In the meantime, ECAS has made sustained efforts to increase its footprint on the ground. You have over 2,000 soldiers, and the ECAS countries have committed themselves to provide additional troops so that we can reach the authorized strength of 3,652.
Oh, that's CCTV's Groom Charles speaking there with AU's Peace and Security Commissioner El Gassam Wane on the situation in CAR. Now, the African Union Peace and Security Council visited Mogadishu on Friday to support the federal government of Somalia and the AU peacekeeping mission in Somalia, AMISOM. The Peace and Security Council is comprised of 15 members elected by the AU Assembly of Heads of State and Government and is responsible for maintenance of continental peace and security. The African Union has recently pushed for a boost in the African peacekeeping troops serving in Somalia by a further 6,000.
For the Peace and Security Council, it's very important to come today in Somalia, and especially in Mogadishu, to support the people and also the government of Federal of Somalia. And we support also, of course, AMISOM forces in Somalia. So it's very, very, very interesting trip today in Mogadishu, and I think we talk with the president. We receive a lot of information, and I think we are coming back to Addis Ababa with a lot of information.
Well, let's take another break here on AfricaLive. Still ahead. Glory hunting for a good cause. We tell you about an exciting charitable event in Zimbabwe. Ethiopia's government has temporarily banned its citizens from traveling abroad to look for work. The foreign ministry was quoted as saying countless Ethiopians had lost their lives or undergone untold physical and psychological trauma because of illegal human trafficking. CCTV's Groom Chala tells us more.
The decision was meant to safeguard the well-being of citizens, said Prime Minister Haile Mariam Desalegn when he presented the matter to the country's parliament last week. Based on this, Ethiopians are provisionally banned from traveling to Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and so on in search of work. The travel ban will remain in place until a lasting solution is found for the citizens of the nation to work safely abroad. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs said the government had taken various measures to limit the suffering of its citizens, including setting up a national council and a task force to educate them. But those measures had not been able to address the problem sufficiently. Employment agencies will also be barred from facilitating travel abroad. The scarcity of work opportunities is a major factor fueling immigration from Ethiopia, which has Africa's second largest population. Youth unemployment is officially estimated at more than 50%. Grumjala CCTV, Mekelle, Northern Ethiopia.
A group of fundraisers in Zimbabwe are hoping to make it into the world's Guinness Book of Records for the longest continuous line of bunting. The world record attempt was mounted by Think Pink, a cancer awareness group. Over 7,000 new cases are reported each year, the most prevalent being cervical and breast cancer, the latter affecting 1 in every 10 women.
These alarming statistics have inspired a world-beating effort. On Thursday, 6.6 kilometers of bunting was put up at a local golf course, a feat that should make it into the global record books. It beats the previous record of just over 4 kilometers. However, organizers have to wait for a final decision from the Guinness Book of World Records.
We have to submit a whole pack of evidence. All these people here coming past us right now are measuring, witnessing, and we all have to submit statements and affidavits and all sorts of things, and then send an evidence package with video evidence and photographs to England, and then they will review it.
But even ahead of the confirmation, there is cause for celebration. Over $28,000 was raised for cancer patients through the sale of individual flags at $1 each. The funds will go towards acquiring much-needed cancer testing kits and increasing awareness campaigns in remote areas. Farai Mwakutuya, CCTV, Harare, Zimbabwe.
Bad weather in space is a phenomenon whose impact is not widely known, but its potential for wide-scale technological disruption is increasingly coming to the fore. Now, scientists at the South Africa's National Space Agency in the Western Cape have developed a new space weather radar that may help in predicting some of the most destructive space weather patterns heading Earth's way. CCTV's Travis Andrews has more.
Space. It's an inhospitable environment in which man has very little control, and it's playing a far bigger role in our day-to-day lives than most people think. Here at South Africa's National Space Weather Center in Hermanus, scientists are monitoring plasma from the sun. It's a way of predicting destructive types of weather that's being experienced in space. Like the impact severe weather has on Earth, their counterpart in space can be just as destructive.
On Earth we have weather, like hurricanes and storms and lightning and those kinds of things that can do a lot of damage to all kinds of things, like in terms of our technology. In space we also have weather. We have solar flares, coronal mass ejections, which are large bursts of energy that come off of the sun, that travel towards the Earth and can then impact on the Earth's protective shield called the magnetic field.
But there may be some respite to the unpredictability of solar weather and its impact on technologies on Earth, because South African scientists have developed a new radar called the SuperDawn. It's a radar system developed locally, and it will act as an early warning system to monitor inclement space weather about to hit Earth. South Africa's space agency is hoping the radar will put Africa at the forefront of checking the weather in space and provide vital information that will protect infrastructure and technology on Earth as well as in space. Reading plasma levels in the Earth's ionosphere is a way these scientists can detect space storms. They also provide forecasts and alerts to anyone affected by space weather in order to protect the technologies that we have become accustomed to.
Today, man is very dependent on technology, internet, cell phones, computer systems, communication via satellite, navigation systems. We go everywhere with our gadgets, and space weather can affect these gadgets. They can affect our ability to monitor and use our technology that we're so dependent on.
At the end of the year, the new radar system will be shipped to Antarctica aboard the SA Agulhas 2. And once it comes online, we'll be pushing a brand new frontier in the prediction of destructive weather patterns in space. Travis Andrews, CCTV, Hermanus.
And that's it for now. And remember, you can stay in touch with us. Our Twitter handle is @CCTV News Africa. And you can also visit our Facebook page, CCTV Africa. I'm Penina Karibe. Thanks for watching, and goodbye from Nairobi.